Question 1. The risk matrix shows a high probability of data corruption impacting critical financial reporting tables within an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) database. The immediate priority is to restore data integrity and understand the cause to prevent recurrence, while adhering to strict data governance and auditability requirements. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Engage OCI Data Safe for data auditing and masking, and OCI Cloud Guard for security posture analysis to identify the source of corruption and guide remediation, while maintaining a detailed log of all investigative actions. Option B. Immediately initiate a full database restore from the most recent backup without further investigation, assuming the backup is uncorrupted. Option C. Manually access and correct individual data records within the production OCI database using direct SQL commands to fix inconsistencies, without involving OCI's auditing features. Option D. Utilize third-party data recovery software that is not natively integrated with OCI to scan and repair the affected tables, bypassing OCI's built-in data management services. Correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a full database restore from the most recent backup without further investigation, assuming the backup is uncorrupted. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between leveraging cloud services for agility and the critical need to maintain data integrity and compliance within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) environment. The organization is facing a potential data corruption event, which directly impacts its ability to provide accurate financial reporting and adhere to regulatory mandates. The challenge lies in quickly and effectively diagnosing the root cause of the corruption without introducing further risk or violating data governance policies. The pressure to restore services rapidly must be balanced against the imperative to conduct a thorough and compliant investigation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented investigation leveraging OCI's native data management and auditing tools. This aligns with the principles of data governance and compliance expected within a regulated industry. Specifically, utilizing OCI Data Safe for data masking and auditing, and OCI Cloud Guard for security posture management and threat detection allows for a controlled and auditable examination of data changes and access logs. This method ensures that any remediation steps are based on factual evidence, minimizing the risk of further data loss or corruption. It also provides the necessary audit trails to demonstrate compliance with data integrity requirements, which are fundamental to financial reporting regulations. The focus on OCI's integrated services reflects best practices for managing data within the Oracle Cloud ecosystem, ensuring that solutions are designed for the specific platform and its security and compliance features. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately reverting to a previous backup without a thorough investigation. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses the opportunity to understand the root cause of the corruption. This failure can lead to recurring issues if the underlying vulnerability is not identified and addressed. From a regulatory perspective, it may also prevent the organization from demonstrating due diligence in data integrity management, potentially violating audit requirements. Another incorrect approach is to manually inspect and modify data records directly in the production environment without proper change control or auditing. This is highly risky and unprofessional. It introduces a significant risk of introducing further errors or inconsistencies, exacerbating the corruption. Furthermore, it bypasses OCI's built-in auditing capabilities, making it impossible to track changes or prove data integrity to auditors or regulators. This directly contravenes data governance principles and regulatory expectations for auditable data management. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on external, non-OCI integrated tools for data analysis, without understanding their compatibility or potential impact on the OCI environment. While external tools can be valuable, their use in a production cloud environment requires careful consideration of data egress, security, and integration. Without proper validation, these tools might not accurately interpret OCI-specific data structures or logs, leading to misdiagnosis. This also poses a risk of unauthorized data access or exposure if not managed according to OCI's security policies. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should adopt a structured decision-making process. First, prioritize containment and impact assessment. Second, engage OCI's native diagnostic and auditing tools to gather evidence. Third, consult OCI documentation and support for best practices in data recovery and integrity checks. Fourth, develop a remediation plan based on evidence, ensuring it includes rollback procedures and post-remediation verification. Finally, document all steps taken, findings, and decisions to ensure auditability and continuous improvement of data management practices. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, compliant, and minimize further risk. Question 2. Investigation of a client's request for broad access to sensitive customer data stored within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, raises concerns about potential data privacy violations. The data management professional has identified that the requested access level exceeds the typical permissions granted for the client's role and is not clearly justified by their stated business need. Option A. Inform the client that their request cannot be fulfilled due to security concerns without further investigation. Option B. Forward the request directly to the OCI security team for immediate action without any prior review. Option C. Review the client's request against OCI data governance policies and the principle of least privilege, seeking clarification on the business justification before granting any access. Option D. Immediately grant the client the requested broad access to ensure client satisfaction and avoid delays. Correct answer is C. Review the client's request against OCI data governance policies and the principle of least privilege, seeking clarification on the business justification before granting any access. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a client's request for data access and the data management professional's responsibility to uphold data privacy and security principles, especially when dealing with sensitive personal information. The professional must navigate the ethical imperative to protect data against the client's desire for unrestricted access, requiring careful judgment to balance competing interests. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the data access request against established data governance policies and relevant Oracle Cloud data management guidelines. This ensures that any access granted is compliant with security protocols, privacy regulations, as applicable within the Oracle Cloud ecosystem and its intended use cases, and the principle of least privilege. Adhering to these established procedures demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing data integrity, security, and compliance, thereby mitigating risks of unauthorized access or data breaches. This aligns with the foundational principles of responsible data management within cloud environments. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting immediate access without verification fails to adhere to data governance policies and the principle of least privilege. This represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure, potentially leading to unauthorized data exposure and violating data privacy expectations. It bypasses necessary security checks and risk assessments. Escalating the request to a supervisor without attempting to understand the request's legitimacy or consulting relevant policies is an abdication of professional responsibility. While escalation can be a part of process, doing so as the first step without due diligence indicates a lack of proactive problem-solving and adherence to established data management workflows. Ignoring the request entirely is unprofessional and can lead to client dissatisfaction and potential breaches of service agreements. It fails to address the client's needs and bypasses the opportunity to apply established data access procedures, which could have led to a compliant solution. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the request, consulting relevant policies and guidelines, assessing risks, and then taking appropriate action, which may include granting, denying, or escalating the request based on established criteria. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and compliant. Question 3. Implementation of a new customer data analytics platform on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure requires careful consideration of data residency and sovereignty. The organization handles sensitive customer information that is subject to strict regulations regarding where it can be stored and processed. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with these regulations? Option A. Prioritizing the lowest cost data storage option available within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, regardless of its geographic location. Option B. Assuming that if the data is encrypted, its physical location is no longer a regulatory concern. Option C. Engaging legal counsel specializing in data privacy and cloud regulations, and verifying the cloud provider's specific data residency capabilities and contractual guarantees for the chosen regions. Option D. Relying on the cloud provider's default global infrastructure and assuming it meets all regulatory needs. The correct answer is D. Relying on the cloud provider's default global infrastructure and assuming it meets all regulatory needs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for rapid data access and processing with the imperative to comply with data residency and sovereignty regulations. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying potentially ambiguous or evolving regulatory requirements to a dynamic cloud environment. Making an incorrect decision can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The need for careful judgment stems from the fact that compliance is not always a black and white issue, and different interpretations of regulations can exist, especially when dealing with cross-border data flows. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the specific data residency and sovereignty regulations applicable to the data being managed. This necessitates consulting legal counsel specializing in data privacy and cloud computing within the relevant jurisdiction. It also requires engaging with the cloud provider to understand their data center locations, data processing policies, and contractual guarantees regarding data residency. Implementing technical controls, such as data encryption and access restrictions, that are aligned with these regulatory requirements and contractual agreements is paramount. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes legal and regulatory adherence, minimizes risk, and ensures that data is handled in a manner that respects jurisdictional boundaries and customer privacy. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to responsible data stewardship. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that the cloud provider's standard service offering automatically meets all data residency requirements. This fails to acknowledge that cloud providers operate globally, and their default configurations may not align with specific jurisdictional mandates. This approach risks regulatory noncompliance due to a lack of proactive verification and customization. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings or performance benefits over regulatory compliance. While efficiency is important, it should never supersede legal obligations. Choosing a data storage location solely based on cost or speed, without verifying its compliance with data residency laws, is a direct violation of regulatory frameworks and can lead to severe penalties. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on internal IT team knowledge without seeking external legal expertise. Data privacy regulations are complex and constantly updated. Internal teams may lack the specialized knowledge to interpret these nuances accurately, leading to misinterpretations and non-compliance. This approach demonstrates a failure to engage with the necessary subject matter experts, increasing the risk of legal and ethical breaches. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential regulatory risks associated with data management, assessing their likelihood and impact, and then implementing controls to mitigate those risks. For data residency, this means 1. Identifying all applicable data residency and sovereignty regulations. 2. Consulting with legal experts to interpret these regulations in the context of the specific data and cloud deployment. 3. Evaluating cloud provider capabilities and contractual terms against regulatory requirements. 4. Implementing technical and organizational measures to ensure compliance. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating compliance strategies as regulations and cloud services evolve. Question 4. The monitoring system demonstrates a sudden surge in data access requests to a sensitive customer database within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, originating from multiple, previously unassociated IP addresses. The access patterns are unusual but not definitively malicious. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for a cloud data professional? Option A. Gather more context by reviewing data classification, access logs, and user roles related to the affected database before taking further action. Option B. Immediately revoke access for all users associated with the database and initiate a full forensic investigation. Option C. Escalate the alert to the Security Operations Center for immediate threat hunting without further internal analysis. Option D. Temporarily suspend all database operations until the source of the access can be definitively identified. Correct answer is B. Immediately revoke access for all users associated with the database and initiate a full forensic investigation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, identifying and responding to anomalous data access patterns. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for security and compliance with the operational requirements of the business. False positive could lead to unnecessary disruption and investigation, while a false negative could result in a significant security breach or regulatory violation. The pressure to act quickly without sufficient information adds to the complexity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that prioritizes data classification and impact assessment. By first understanding the sensitivity and criticality of the data being accessed, a cloud data professional can determine the appropriate level of scrutiny and response. This aligns with best practices in data governance and security, which emphasize a risk-based approach. In the context of Oracle Cloud, this would involve leveraging Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI security services, and data management tools to gather more context. For instance, understanding the data's classification, e.g., PI, financial, proprietary, dictates the urgency and severity of the response. This approach ensures that resources are allocated effectively and that actions taken are proportionate to the potential risk, adhering to principles of data protection and responsible cloud usage. Incorrect approaches analysis. Immediately revoking access for all users involved is a premature and potentially damaging response. This approach fails to consider the possibility of legitimate, albeit unusual, access patterns. It could disrupt critical business operation, leading to financial losses and reputational damage. Ethically, it violates the principle of due process for users who may have valid reasons for their access. From a regulatory standpoint, such an indiscriminate action could be seen as an overreach and might not align with data breach notification requirements, which often necessitate a confirmed incident before drastic measures are taken. Ignoring the alert to avoid potential disruption is a severe dereliction of duty. This approach prioritizes convenience over security and compliance. It directly contravenes the fundamental responsibility of a cloud data professional to protect data assets. Ethically, it represents negligence and a failure to uphold professional standards. Regulatory failures are significant. Ignoring a potential security anomaly could lead to a data breach going undetected, resulting in severe penalties, fines, and legal repercussions under data protection regulations. Initiating a full-scale forensic investigation without initial triage is inefficient and resource-intensive. While a forensic investigation is a necessary step if a breach is confirmed, performing it immediately without understanding the context of the alert wastes valuable time and resources. This approach lacks a structured, risk-based methodology. Ethically, it's an irresponsible use of resources. Regulatory compliance often mandates a phased approach to incident response, starting with containment and assessment before escalating to more complex investigations, ensuring that actions are proportionate and effective. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured incident response framework. This typically involves 1. Detection and alerting, recognizing the anomaly. 2. Triage and analysis, gathering context, classifying data, assessing impact. 3. Containment, preventing further unauthorized access or damage. 4. Eradication, removing the threat. 5. Recovery, restoring systems and data. 6. Lessons learned, improving future responses. In this scenario, the critical step is triage and analysis. Understanding the data involved and the nature of the access is paramount before taking drastic actions or initiating extensive investigations. This methodical approach ensures that responses are appropriate, efficient, and compliant with professional and regulatory obligations. Question 5. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly leveraging Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, for global data analytics. A company operating within the European Union, EU, collects personal data from its customers and needs to perform complex analytics on this data. The company is concerned about complying with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which has strict rules regarding the processing and storage of personal data. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with GDPR data residency requirements when using OCI for analytics? Option A. Rely on Oracle's standard contractual clauses to ensure GDPR compliance, assuming data will be adequately protected wherever it is processed. Option B. Utilize OCI's global network of data centers to process data in the most cost-effective region, regardless of its geographical location. Option C. Process the data in a non-EEA region and then transfer it back to the EEA for storage, assuming the transfer mechanism is documented. Option D. Configure OCI services to store and process all personal data exclusively within OCI regions located within the European Economic Area, EEA. The correct answer is D. Configure OCI services to store and process all personal data exclusively within OCI regions located within the European Economic Area, EEA. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in data management within the Oracle Cloud environment, specifically concerning data residency and compliance with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. The core difficulty lies in balancing the business need for efficient data processing and analytics with the stringent legal requirements of GDPR, which mandates specific controls over personal data, including its location and transfer. A data management professional must navigate these competing demands, ensuring that technical solutions align with legal obligations to avoid significant penalties and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a data residency strategy that aligns with GDPR principles. This means ensuring that personal data is stored and processed within the European Economic Area, EEA, or in a jurisdiction deemed to have adequate data protection by the European Commission. Oracle Cloud offers features like region selection and data residency controls that allow organizations to specify where their data is physically located. By leveraging these features, the organization can demonstrate compliance with GDPR data localization requirements, thereby protecting the privacy rights of individuals and adhering to legal mandates. This proactive stance on data residency is a cornerstone of responsible data management under GDPR. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that Oracle Cloud's global infrastructure automatically ensures GDPR compliance without explicit configuration. This overlooks the fact that data can be processed or accessed from outside the EEA if not properly restricted, leading to potential GDPR violations. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings by selecting the cheapest cloud region without considering its geographical location relative to the EEA and the data's residency requirements. This demonstrates a failure to understand the legal implications of data location under GDPR. Finally, relying solely on contractual clauses with Oracle without verifying the actual technical implementation of data residency controls is also a flawed strategy. While contracts are important, they must be supported by verifiable technical measures to ensure compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data management. This involves first identifying the types of data being handled, particularly personal data subject to regulations like GDPR. Next, they must understand the specific regulatory requirements related to data residency and cross-border data transfers for the relevant jurisdictions. In the context of Oracle Cloud, this means thoroughly researching and utilizing the platform's features for data residency and access control. Professionals should consult with legal and compliance teams to ensure their technical decisions are aligned with legal obligations. Regular audits and reviews of data management practices are crucial to maintain ongoing compliance and adapt to evolving regulations. Question 6. The audit findings indicate that a senior executive has requested direct, unfettered access to a sensitive customer database hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, to perform an urgent ad hoc analysis for a potential business opportunity. The executive states that the standard data access request process is too slow and that the data is needed immediately. What is the most appropriate course of action for the data management professional? Option A. Grant the executive direct access to the database immediately to facilitate the urgent business analysis, as their seniority implies a legitimate need. Option B. Deny the executive access to the database, citing the strict security policies, and advise them to wait for the standard approval process. Option C. Attempt to anonymize the entire customer database and provide it to the executive, assuming this will satisfy their analytical needs while mitigating privacy concerns. Option D. Inform the executive about the standard data access request procedure and guide them through the process, emphasizing the importance of data governance and security protocols. The correct answer is D. Inform the executive about the standard data access request procedure and guide them through the process, emphasizing the importance of data governance and security protocols. Explanation: the audit findings indicate a potential conflict of interest and a breach of data privacy principles, which are critical in Oracle Cloud data management. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for data access for a critical business function with the long-term implications of unauthorized access and potential data misuse. Professionals must navigate this by adhering strictly to established data governance policies and regulatory requirements. The correct approach prioritizes data security and compliance. It involves formally requesting access through the documented channels, ensuring that the request is reviewed and approved by the appropriate data governance body. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and ensures that access is granted only to authorized personnel for legitimate business purposes, as mandated by data protection regulations. This process also provides an audit trail, crucial for demonstrating compliance during future audits. An incorrect approach would be to bypass formal procedures and grant direct access based on a verbal request from a senior stakeholder. This circumvents established security controls and data governance policies, creating a significant risk of unauthorized data access and potential misuse. This action directly violates data privacy regulations by failing to implement adequate safeguards and potentially exposing sensitive information. Another incorrect approach is to deny access entirely without exploring legitimate avenues for data retrieval, which could hinder critical business operations and demonstrate a lack of understanding of data management best practices. Finally, attempting to anonymize the data without understanding the full scope of the request or the data's sensitivity could lead to incomplete or misleading information, failing to meet the business need, and potentially violating data quality standards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the request and its business justification. They must then consult relevant data governance policies and regulatory requirements. If the request aligns with these, the formal access request process should be initiated. If there are ambiguities or potential conflicts, escalation to the Data Governance Committee or legal counsel is the appropriate step. This structured approach ensures that decisions are made ethically, legally, and in alignment with organizational policies. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that sensitive customer data, intended to be stored exclusively within the European Union (EU) region for compliance with data residency mandates, has been inadvertently provisioned in an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) region outside the EU. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action to address this compliance gap? Option A. Halt all services that access the non-compliant data until a complete re-architecture of the data storage solution can be implemented. Option B. Immediately delete the non-compliant data from the OCI region outside the EU to eliminate the compliance risk. Option C. Continue operations as usual, documenting the finding for future review, as the risk of detection is low. Option D. Initiate a phased migration of the non-compliant data to an approved EU region, ensuring data integrity and minimal service disruption, while simultaneously updating OCI configurations to prevent future occurrences. The correct answer is D. Initiate a phased migration of the non-compliant data to an approved EU region, ensuring data integrity and minimal service disruption, while simultaneously updating OCI configurations to prevent future occurrences. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, where a governance review highlights a discrepancy between stated data residency policies and actual data storage locations. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate remediation with the potential impact on ongoing business operations, stakeholder trust, and compliance with Oracle Cloud's specific service level agreements and data handling guidelines. The core difficulty is ensuring that the chosen solution not only rectifies the immediate issue, but also establishes a sustainable governance framework that prevents recurrence. all while adhering to the principles of data sovereignty and privacy, as implicitly understood within the Oracle Cloud ecosystem, and its associated documentation for the 1Z0-1105-22 exam. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, phased remediation plan that prioritizes data security and compliance. This includes immediately identifying and isolating the non-compliant data, assessing the impact on affected services and users, and then migrating the data to an approved region with minimal disruption. This aligns with best practices for cloud data governance, emphasizing proactive risk management and adherence to established policies within the context of Oracle Cloud Data Management. This approach respects the platform's capabilities for data region selection and management, ensuring that data remains within designated geographical boundaries as per organizational policy and any implicit regulatory considerations for data handling within cloud services. It demonstrates a commitment to data integrity and regulatory adherence by taking measured steps to correct the issue. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately deleting the non-compliant data without proper backup or assessment. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure as it risks data loss, violates data retention policies, and could lead to significant legal and financial repercussions if the data is required for audit, legal discovery, or business continuity. It demonstrates a disregard for data lifecycle management and a failure to uphold the principle of data preservation. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the findings and continue with existing operations, assuming the risk is minimal. This represents a critical failure in governance and compliance. It directly contravenes the purpose of a governance review and exposes the organization to significant risks, including potential breaches of data residency requirements, loss of customer trust, and penalties for non-compliance with any implicit or explicit data protection mandates associated with cloud service usage. It shows a lack of professional responsibility and a disregard for established data management principles. A third incorrect approach is to immediately halt all services that utilize the non-compliant data without a clear plan for migration or resolution. While seemingly proactive, this can cause undue business disruption and negatively impact stakeholders without a structured path to compliance. It fails to balance risk mitigation with operational continuity and demonstrates poor planning and stakeholder management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the scope and impact of the noncompliance. This involves a thorough assessment of the data, its sensitivity, and its current usage. The next step is to consult relevant internal policies, Oracle Cloud documentation pertaining to data residency and management, and any applicable industry best practices. A phased remediation plan should then be developed, prioritizing data security and compliance while minimizing business disruption. This plan should include clear communication with stakeholders, risk assessment, and a rollback strategy if necessary. The decision-making process should be guided by a commitment to data integrity, regulatory adherence, and responsible cloud resource management. Question 8. Operational review demonstrates that a new data analytics initiative requires ingesting large volumes of raw, unstructured data from various external sources and subsequently performing complex analytical queries to derive business insights. The team is considering how to best store and manage this data within Oracle Cloud infrastructure to ensure performance, scalability, and cost-effectiveness. Option A. Implement a hybrid approach by maintaining an on-premises data warehouse and integrating it with Oracle Cloud infrastructure for data ingestion. Option B. Utilize only Oracle Cloud infrastructure object storage for all data, performing all analytical queries directly against it. Option C. Store raw ingested data in Oracle Cloud infrastructure object storage and then load processed, structured data into Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse for analytical querying. Option D. Store all raw and processed data directly within Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse, optimizing it for all access patterns. The correct answer is C. Store raw ingested data in Oracle Cloud infrastructure object storage and then load processed, structured data into Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse for analytical querying. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for rapid data access and development with the imperative to maintain data integrity and security. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate data storage and access strategy that aligns with both business objectives and the foundational principles of data management, particularly within the context of Oracle Cloud. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term data quality and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes leveraging Oracle Cloud Infrastructures, OSI, robust data management services, specifically object storage for raw data ingestion and autonomous data warehouse ADWA for structured queryable data. This strategy aligns with best practices by separating raw, immutable data from processed, analytical data. Object storage provides cost-effective, durable storage for large volumes of unstructured or semi-structured data, serving as a data lake. ADWA, on the other hand, is optimized for analytical workloads, offering high performance for complex queries and reporting. This separation ensures data integrity, facilitates efficient querying, and supports a clear data lineage. It also aligns with the foundational principles of data management by promoting a structured approach to data lifecycle management and access control within OCI. And correct approaches analysis. Storing all data, including raw ingested data, directly within autonomous data warehouse without an intermediate staging layer is professionally unacceptable. ADW is optimized for structured analytical queries, not for the high volume, potentially unstructured, and rapidly changing nature of raw data ingestion. This approach would lead to inefficient storage utilization, performance degradation for analytical queries, increased costs, and a higher risk of data corruption or loss due to the transactional nature of ADW. It also bypasses best practices for data lake implementation, which are crucial for managing diverse data types. Using only Oracle Cloud Infrastructure object storage for all data, including analytical queries, is also professionally unacceptable. While object storage is excellent for durable, cost-effective storage, it is not designed for high-performance analytical querying. Attempting to perform complex SQL queries directly on object storage would result in extremely poor performance, making it impractical for business intelligence and reporting needs. This approach fails to leverage the specialized capabilities of OCI's analytical services. Implementing a custom, on-premises data warehousing solution and integrating it with OCI for data ingestion is professionally questionable in this context. While hybrid solutions can be valid, the question implies a cloud-native approach. This option introduces unnecessary complexity, potential integration challenges, and increased operational overhead compared to utilizing OCI's fully managed services. It deviates from the best practice of maximizing the benefits of the cloud platform for data management and analytics. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this scenario by first understanding the distinct characteristics and intended use cases of different OCI data services. The decision-making process should involve evaluating the data's lifecycle, its structure, and the intended access patterns. A best practice is to adopt a tiered storage approach, utilizing services like object storage for raw data and more specialized services like ADW for structured analytical processing. This ensures optimal performance, cost efficiency, and data integrity, while adhering to cloud-native architectural principles. Professionals must prioritize solutions that leverage the strengths of the cloud platform and align with established data management best practices. Question 9. The control framework reveals a critical requirement for a financial services organization to ensure that sensitive customer data, originating from the European Union, is stored and processed exclusively within OCI regions located within the EU. Which of the following strategies best aligns with this data residency mandate and Oracle Cloud Infrastructure's capabilities? Option A. Configuring OCI services to utilize a single, designated EU OCI region for all data storage and processing, and implementing network security controls to restrict data egress outside of that region. Option B. Encrypting all customer data at rest and in transit using OCI's encryption services, without specific regard to the geographical location of the OCI regions used. Option C. Deploying data processing workloads across multiple OCI regions, including regions outside the EU, to leverage OCI's distributed compute capabilities for faster processing. Option D. Relying on OCI's global network infrastructure to automatically manage data placement, assuming that data will be stored in the most performant or cost-effective locations. The correct answer is A. Configuring OCI services to utilize a single, designated EU OCI region for all data storage and processing, and implementing network security controls to restrict data egress outside of that region. Explanation: the control framework reveals a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for data accessibility with stringent regulatory compliance. In this scenario, the professional must navigate the complexities of data residency requirements, which are critical for adhering to regulations like GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, if the data pertains to EU citizens, or similar data localization laws in other jurisdictions. The challenge lies in ensuring that data stored and processed within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, remains within the designated geographical boundaries as mandated by law, without compromising the operational efficiency or the security of the data. The correct approach involves leveraging OCI's region and availability domain configurations to enforce data residency. By explicitly selecting the appropriate OCI region that aligns with the regulatory requirements and ensuring that all data services, including storage and compute, are provisioned within that region, the professional demonstrates adherence to data localization mandates. This proactive configuration is best professional practice because it directly addresses the legal and ethical obligations to protect sensitive data and maintain its geographical integrity. It minimizes the risk of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. An incorrect approach would be to assume that OCI's global infrastructure automatically complies with all data residency laws. This assumption is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it overlooks the specific requirements of data localization, which often mandate data to reside within a particular country or region. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on encryption without considering the physical location of the data. While encryption is vital for data security, it does not inherently satisfy data residency requirements. Data must still be stored in an approved geographical location, regardless of its encryption status. Finally, a failure to document and audit data residency configurations is also a professional failing. Without proper documentation and regular audits, it becomes impossible to prove compliance to regulators or to identify and rectify potential breaches of data residency policies. The professional decision-making process should involve a thorough understanding of applicable data protection regulations, a detailed assessment of data types and their associated residency requirements, and a proactive configuration of OCI services to meet these mandates. This includes consulting OCI documentation on region selection and data governance, implementing robust monitoring and auditing mechanisms, and establishing clear internal policies for data handling and residency. Question 10. Risk assessment procedures indicate that an analytics team requires read-only access to specific data objects stored within an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, object storage bucket to perform their analysis. The data objects are located in a compartment designated for sensitive information. Which of the following is the most secure and compliant approach to grant this access? Option A. Create a custom IAM policy that grants the analytics team's group read-only access to the specific data objects within the designated compartment. Option B. Provide the analytics team with direct, unrestricted access to the entire object storage bucket containing the sensitive data. Option C. Grant the analytics team's group broad administrative privileges within the compartment to ensure they have full control over all resources. Option D. Replicate the required data objects to a separate, less secure storage solution outside of OCI for the analytics team's use. The correct answer is A. Create a custom IAM policy that grants the analytics team's group read-only access to the specific data objects within the designated compartment. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for efficient data access and processing with the imperative to protect sensitive information from unauthorized disclosure. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, security best practices and relevant data protection principles within a specific regulatory context, without overstepping the boundaries of authorized access. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for both operational disruption and security breaches if data access controls are misapplied. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging OCI's built-in identity and access management policies to grant the minimum necessary privileges. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of robust security. By creating a custom IAM policy that specifically allows read-only access to the target data object within the specified compartment, the administrator ensures that the data is accessible for the intended analytical purpose while preventing any modifications or deletions. This adheres to OCI's security model and promotes data integrity and confidentiality, which are critical for compliance with data protection regulations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting broad administrative privileges to the analytics team is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Administrative privileges encompass the ability to manage resources, including modifying or deleting data, which directly violates the principle of least privilege and increases the risk of accidental or malicious data loss or corruption. This could lead to non-compliance with data governance mandates that require data integrity and auditability. Providing direct, unrestricted access to the entire object storage bucket without any IAM policy is another severe failure. This exposes all data within the bucket, including potentially sensitive information, to the analytics team without any access control. This is a direct contravention of data privacy principles and could result in unauthorized disclosure of sensitive data, leading to regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Creating a separate, less secure storage solution outside of OCI for the data is also an unacceptable approach. This bypasses OCI's robust security features and governance controls, creating an unmanaged data silo. This fragmentation of data management increases the risk of data loss, makes auditing difficult, and can lead to non-compliance with data residency and security requirements mandated by regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the specific data sensitivity and the exact requirements of the requesting team. This involves consulting OCI documentation on IAM and security best practices. The decision-making process should prioritize a layered security approach, starting with the principle of least privilege. When granting access, administrators should always ask, what is the minimum access required for this user/group to perform their task? If a specific OCI service or feature can fulfill the requirement with granular controls, that should be the preferred method over broader, less secure options. Regular review of access policies and logs is also crucial to maintain a secure and compliant cloud environment. Question 11. Market research demonstrates a growing demand for detailed customer segmentation to refine marketing strategies. A company has collected a large dataset containing customer purchase history, demographic information, and online browsing behavior. The data is stored in Oracle Cloud infrastructure. The marketing team requires access to this data for analysis, but the company must ensure compliance with data privacy regulations. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for analytical utility with the requirement for robust data protection? Option A. Remove only the direct identifiers like customer names and email addresses from the dataset. Option B. Aggregate the data into broad categories without applying specific anonymization algorithms, assuming this sufficiently obscures individual identities. Option C. Implement advanced anonymization techniques such as differential privacy or k-anonymity on the dataset before providing it to the marketing team for analysis. Option D. Provide the marketing team with direct access to the raw, unanonymized dataset stored in the Oracle Cloud, assuming the cloud environment provides sufficient security. The correct answer is C. Implement advanced anonymization techniques such as differential privacy or k-anonymity on the dataset before providing it to the marketing team for analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for efficient data processing and analysis with the imperative to protect sensitive customer information. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate method for anonymizing data to meet regulatory compliance without compromising the utility of the data for market research. The complexity arises from the potential for re-identification if anonymization is not robust enough, leading to significant legal and reputational risks. Careful judgment is required to select a technique that effectively obscures individual identities while retaining analytical value. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing robust data anonymization techniques that render individual data points unidentifiable. This aligns with the principles of data privacy and protection mandated by relevant regulations. Specifically, techniques like k-anonymity, differential privacy, or generalization, when applied correctly, ensure that an individual cannot be reasonably identified from the anonymized dataset, even when combined with external information. This approach upholds the ethical obligation to protect customer privacy and complies with regulatory requirements by minimizing the risk of data breaches or misuse of personal information. It allows for continued data analysis for market research purposes, fulfilling business objectives without violating privacy standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves simply removing direct identifiers such as names and addresses. This is insufficient because indirect identifiers, e.g., zip code, date of birth, occupation, can still be used in combination to re-identify individuals, especially in smaller datasets or when cross-referenced with publicly available information. This failure to adequately protect personal data constitutes a regulatory violation and an ethical breach of trust. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on data aggregation without applying specific anonymization algorithms. While aggregation can reduce the granularity of data, it does not inherently guarantee anonymization. If the aggregated data still contains unique combinations of attributes, re-identification remains a possibility. This approach risks non-compliance with data protection laws that require a higher standard of anonymization. A third incorrect approach is to assume that data stored in a private cloud environment is inherently secure and does not require anonymization for internal analysis. This overlooks the fact that even within a controlled environment, unauthorized access or accidental disclosure can occur. Furthermore, regulatory obligations regarding data protection often extend to the processing and analysis phases, regardless of the storage location. Failing to anonymize data in this context can lead to breaches of privacy and non-compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data anonymization. This involves understanding the sensitivity of the data, the intended use of the data, and the potential re-identification risks. A thorough assessment should guide the selection of appropriate anonymization techniques. Prioritizing privacy-preserving methods that are scientifically validated and demonstrably effective is crucial. Continuous monitoring and re-evaluation of anonymization strategies are also essential, especially as new re-identification techniques emerge or as data usage patterns change. Consulting with data privacy experts and legal counsel can further ensure compliance and ethical data handling. Question 12. The evaluation methodology shows that when designing a data management strategy for an Oracle Cloud environment, a key consideration is the responsible handling of sensitive customer information. Which of the following approaches best aligns with foundational data management principles and professional best practices for ensuring data integrity and confidentiality? Option A. Prioritize the fastest possible data ingestion and processing speeds to meet business demands, with security measures addressed in a later phase. Option B. Implement robust encryption for data at rest and in transit, and establish granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege. Option C. Focus primarily on the technical configuration of Oracle Cloud services to optimize performance, assuming that Oracle's built-in security features are sufficient for all data types. Option D. Deploy data storage solutions that offer the most cost-effective options, deferring detailed data classification and access policy definition until a data breach occurs. Correct answer is B. Implement robust encryption for data at rest and in transit, and establish granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows that when implementing data management solutions in Oracle Cloud, a critical aspect is ensuring compliance with relevant regulations. This scenario is professionally challenging because data privacy and security are paramount, and failure to adhere to these principles can lead to severe legal repercussions, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is not explicitly stated as a country, implying a focus on general cloud data management principles as understood within the Oracle ecosystem, which often aligns with broad data protection concepts. Correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive and comprehensive understanding of data governance and security requirements before and during implementation. This involves identifying sensitive data, classifying it, and applying appropriate security controls and access management policies. This aligns with the foundational principles of data management that emphasize data integrity, confidentiality, and availability, which are implicitly expected in any regulated environment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical implementation without considering data classification and access controls would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the ethical obligation to protect sensitive data and could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the data being managed falls under specific data protection laws. Even if not explicitly named for this exam, the principles are universal. Another incorrect approach that neglects regular auditing and monitoring of data access and usage would also be a significant ethical and professional failing. This oversight creates vulnerabilities that could be exploited, leading to data breaches and noncompliance with data governance policies. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the data lifecycle, including its acquisition, storage, processing, and eventual disposal. This framework should incorporate risk assessment, compliance checks against established data management best practices and any applicable, even if implied, regulatory principles, and the implementation of robust security measures. Continuous monitoring and adaptation to evolving data management needs and potential threats are also crucial components of this framework. Question 13. Process analysis reveals a critical business unit requires immediate access to a large dataset containing customer personally identifiable information, PI, stored within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, for a time-sensitive marketing campaign. The request comes directly from a senior manager who emphasizes the urgency and potential revenue impact. The data management team has not previously granted access to this specific dataset for such a purpose, and the standard access request procedure typically involves a multi-day review process. What is the most appropriate course of action for the data management team? Option A. Escalate the request to the Data Governance Committee and Security Team for a rapid, but thorough, risk assessment and approval process, ensuring appropriate access controls and auditing are in place before granting access. Option B. Grant immediate access to the dataset as requested by the senior manager, given the urgency and potential revenue impact, to avoid hindering business operations. Option C. Inform the senior manager that the standard access request procedure must be followed, even if it causes delays, and refuse to deviate from established protocols. Option D. Provide the senior manager with a subset of the data that is less sensitive and anonymized, while initiating the standard review process for the full dataset. The correct answer is A. Escalate the request to the Data Governance Committee and Security Team for a rapid, but thorough, risk assessment and approval process, ensuring appropriate access controls and auditing are in place before granting access. Explanation. The scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in data management, balancing the immediate business need for data access with the long-term implications of data privacy and security, particularly when dealing with sensitive customer information. The challenge lies in navigating the potential for misuse of data and ensuring compliance with Oracle Cloud's shared responsibility model and relevant data protection principles. Even if specific regulations are not explicitly detailed in the exam syllabus, the underlying ethical principles of data stewardship are paramount. The correct approach prioritizes a structured, risk-aware process that involves multiple stakeholders and adheres to established data governance policies. This demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling, which is a cornerstone of professional data management. It ensures that access is granted only after a thorough assessment of necessity, impact, and appropriate safeguards, aligning with the principle of least privilege in data minimization. This proactive stance mitigates risks of data breaches, unauthorized access, and potential regulatory noncompliance, thereby protecting both the organization and its customers. An incorrect approach that grants immediate access without proper vetting fails to uphold the duty of care expected of a data professional. This could lead to unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, violating customer trust, and potentially exposing the organization to reputational damage and legal repercussions, even if specific penalties are not detailed in the exam. Another incorrect approach that involves delaying access indefinitely without a clear process or communication creates operational inefficiencies and can frustrate legitimate business needs. But the primary ethical failure is the lack of a defined, risk-based decision-making framework. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on the requester's assurance without independent verification bypasses critical control mechanisms, leaving the data vulnerable to misuse and demonstrating a lack of due diligence. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the request's purpose and the data's sensitivity. This should be followed by an assessment of the potential risks and benefits, consultation with relevant stakeholders, e.g., data owners, security teams, legal/compliance, and adherence to established data access policies. If access is granted, it should be with the minimum necessary privileges and subject to monitoring and auditing. This systematic approach ensures that data is managed ethically and responsibly, fostering trust and maintaining the integrity of data management practices. Question 14. System analysis indicates that a marketing department manager has requested access to a customer's complete purchase history, including personally identifiable information, PI, for a new, unapproved promotional campaign. The data management team has no documented policy for handling such ad hoc requests for sensitive customer data. What is the most ethical and compliant course of action for the data management professional? Option A. Forward the request to a junior data analyst to assess and fulfill, as they are readily available. Option B. Consult the organization's data governance policies and security guidelines to determine the appropriate, secure, and compliant method for handling such requests, potentially involving anonymization or a formal data access review process. Option C. Immediately deny the request and inform the marketing manager that access to customer data is restricted. Option D. Provide the marketing manager with the requested data directly to expedite the campaign, assuming the manager has a legitimate business need. The correct answer is C. Immediately deny the request and inform the marketing manager that access to customer data is restricted. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain data privacy and security while also fulfilling a legitimate business request. The core conflict lies between protecting sensitive customer data from unauthorized access and providing necessary information for business operations. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise ethical and regulatory standards. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing demands, ensuring that any data access or sharing is strictly controlled and compliant. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data governance and compliance by establishing a formal, documented process for data access requests. This involves verifying the legitimacy of the request, assessing the minimum necessary data required, and implementing appropriate security controls and anonymization techniques if possible. This aligns with the foundational principles of data management, emphasizing security, privacy, and accountability. By adhering to established protocols, the data management professional upholds their responsibility to protect data assets and comply with relevant regulations, ensuring that data is accessed and used ethically and legally. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly providing the requested data without any verification or control. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses established data governance policies, potentially exposing sensitive customer information to unauthorized use. It violates the principle of least privilege and the duty to protect data confidentiality, which are fundamental to responsible data management and regulatory compliance. Another incorrect approach is to refuse the request outright without exploring compliant alternatives. While prioritizing data protection is crucial, an outright refusal without considering the business need or offering a secure, compliant method to fulfill the request can hinder legitimate business operations and demonstrate a lack of proactive problem solving. This approach fails to balance security with business enablement, potentially leading to frustration and the circumvention of proper procedures by other departments. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the decision to a less experienced team member without providing clear guidance or oversight. This is an ethical failure, as it abdicates responsibility for data protection and compliance. It also creates a risk of inconsistent application of policies and potential breaches due to a lack of expertise, undermining the overall data governance framework. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the request and its business justification. They must then consult and strictly adhere to their organization's data governance policies, security protocols, and relevant regulatory guidelines. The decision-making process should involve a risk assessment to identify potential data privacy and security implications. If the request cannot be fulfilled directly, professionals should explore alternative compliance solutions, such as providing aggregated or anonymized data, or establishing secure data sharing agreements. Transparency and clear communication with the requesting party about what can and cannot be done, and why, are also essential. Question 15. The assessment process reveals that the data management team in an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) environment is struggling to implement appropriate security measures for sensitive data stored in OCI object storage. Different teams require varying levels of access to this data for analytics, reporting, and operational tasks. The current configuration exposes the data to potential unauthorized access due to overly permissive settings. What is the most effective and compliant approach to secure this sensitive data while enabling necessary access? Option A. Apply data masking techniques to all data within the object storage bucket, regardless of its sensitivity or the access requirements of different teams. Option B. Implement granular access controls using OCI Identity and Access Management (IAM) policies to define specific permissions for users and groups based on their roles and the data they need to access, ensuring data is encrypted at rest and in transit. Option C. Configure Virtual Cloud Network (VCN) security lists to deny all inbound traffic to the object storage service, assuming that internal access will be managed through other means. Option D. Grant broad read and write access to all members of the data management team for all objects within the object storage bucket, relying on network-level security lists to restrict external access. The correct answer is B. Implement granular access controls using OCI Identity and Access Management (IAM) policies to define specific permissions for users and groups based on their roles and the data they need to access, ensuring data is encrypted at rest and in transit. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for data accessibility and performance with the imperative to protect sensitive information from unauthorized access. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI security best practices, and general data governance principles in a real-world implementation context where business needs for data utilization might conflict with stringent security requirements. The ambiguity of sensitive data and the varying levels of access required by different teams necessitate a nuanced approach that avoids over-restriction or under-protection. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing robust access controls at the data layer, specifically leveraging OCI Identity and Access Management (IAM) policies to grant granular permissions to specific OCI resources and data objects. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of cloud security. By defining policies that restrict access to sensitive data based on user roles and responsibility, and by ensuring that data is encrypted at rest and in transit, the organization adheres to best practices for data protection and compliance. This method ensures that only authorized personnel can access specific data sets, minimizing the risk of data breaches or misuse, and is consistent with general data governance frameworks that emphasize data security and privacy. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting broad access to all users within the data management team, regardless of their specific roles or the sensitivity of the data they need to access, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This violates the principle of least privilege, increasing the attack surface and the likelihood of accidental or malicious data exposure. It fails to meet the fundamental requirement of protecting sensitive information. Implementing data masking for all data without considering the operational needs of different teams is also problematic. While masking can protect sensitive data, it can also hinder legitimate data analysis and processing if not applied judiciously. This approach may lead to operational inefficiencies and could be seen as a failure in balancing security with business utility, potentially impacting compliance with data usability requirements if not carefully managed. Relying solely on network-level security controls, such as Virtual Cloud Network (VCN) security lists, to protect sensitive data within OCI object storage is insufficient. Network security is a critical layer, but it does not provide granular control over access to specific data objects within a storage service. Sensitive data requires access controls at the data object level to prevent unauthorized access by authenticated users who might have broader network access. This approach fails to address the specific risks associated with data access within the storage service itself. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data management in OCI. This involves identifying sensitive data, understanding its classification, and assessing the potential impact of its compromise. Subsequently, they should leverage OCI's native security features, particularly IAM policies, to enforce granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege. Regular audits of access logs and security configurations are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and to detect any anomalies. When faced with conflicting requirements, professionals should engage stakeholders to find a balanced solution that meets both security and business objectives, documenting all decisions and their justifications. Question 16. Comparative studies suggest that organizations often struggle to balance the analytical utility of customer data with the stringent requirements of data privacy regulations when migrating to cloud environments. A financial services company is planning to leverage Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, to perform advanced analytics on its customer transaction data. This data contains personally identifiable information, PI, such as names, addresses, and account numbers. The analytics team requires access to this data to identify spending patterns and potential fraud. Which of the following data processing strategies best adheres to the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, while ensuring regulatory compliance for sensitive customer data? Option A. Assume that OCI's inherent security features are sufficient to protect the raw, identifiable customer transaction data, and proceed with analytics without additional data processing precautions. Option B. Process the raw, identifiable customer transaction data directly for analytics and then anonymize the resulting analytical reports before distribution. Option C. Implement robust access controls within OCI to restrict access to the raw, identifiable customer transaction data to only the authorized analytics team members. Option D. Anonymize or mask the personally identifiable information, PI, within the customer transaction data asterisk before asterisk. It is used for analytical processing, ensuring that only aggregated or de-identified data is accessible for analysis. The correct answer is C. Implement robust access controls within OCI to restrict access to the raw, identifiable customer transaction data to only the authorized analytics team members. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for efficient data processing with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations. The professional is tasked with selecting a data processing strategy for sensitive customer information stored in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. The core of the challenge lies in understanding how different data processing methods interact with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, as mandated by data protection laws. The correct approach involves implementing data masking and anonymization techniques asterisk before asterisk. The data is used for analytical purposes. This aligns with the principle of data minimization, ensuring that only necessary, non-identifiable data is exposed for analysis. It also upholds the purpose limitation principle by preventing the use of raw, identifiable data for a purpose, analytics, that may not have been explicitly consented to by the data subjects, or for which anonymized data would suffice. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive personal information, thereby adhering to regulatory requirements and ethical data handling practices. An incorrect approach would be to process the raw, identifiable data directly for analytics, and then attempt to anonymize it afterward. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, because it exposes sensitive personal information to a broader set of users or systems during the initial processing phase, increasing the risk of a data breach or misuse. It violates the principle of data minimization by processing more data than is strictly necessary for the intended analytical purpose in its identifiable form. Furthermore, it could contravene purpose limitation if the initial collection of data was for a specific, limited purpose, and its subsequent use in raw form for analytics goes beyond that scope without appropriate consent or legal basis. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on access controls within OCI to protect the raw data during analytics. While access controls are crucial, they are a secondary layer of defense. Relying only on them for sensitive data processing, without implementing data transformation techniques like masking or anonymization, fails to address the inherent risk of processing identifiable information. If access controls are inadvertently misconfigured or bypassed, the raw sensitive data is exposed. This approach demonstrates a lack of robust data protection strategy and a potential disregard for the principle of data minimization, as it doesn't reduce the data's sensitivity at the source. A final incorrect approach would be to assume that since the data is stored in OCI, which offers various security features, no further data processing precautions are necessary for analytics. This is a critical misunderstanding of data protection responsibility. Cloud provider security features are important, but the responsibility for how data is processed and protected with an asterisk that cloud environment, especially concerning personal data, ultimately rests with the customer. Neglecting to implement specific data processing safeguards like anonymization or masking, even with robust cloud security, constitutes a failure to meet regulatory obligations for data privacy and a breach of ethical data stewardship. The professional decision-making process should involve a risk-based assessment of data processing activities. This includes identifying sensitive data, understanding the intended purpose of processing, evaluating the potential impact of a data breach, and selecting appropriate technical and organizational measures to mitigate those risks. Prioritizing data minimization and purpose limitation, and implementing data transformation techniques before processing are foundational to compliant and ethical cloud data management. Question 17. System analysis indicates that a financial services organization is migrating sensitive customer transaction data to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. The primary goals are to ensure data security, maintain regulatory compliance, and optimize query performance for analytical reporting. Which of the following data management approaches best aligns with these objectives and industry best practices for OCI? Option A. Store all data in plain text within OCI object storage, assuming that access is restricted to authorized personnel only. Option B. Rely solely on OCI's network-level security features and firewall configurations to protect the data. Option C. Implement robust encryption for data at rest and in transit, coupled with granular access controls and regular security audits. Option D. Disable data encryption to maximize query speeds for analytical reporting, assuming OCI's inherent security is sufficient. The correct answer is C. Implement robust encryption for data at rest and in transit, coupled with granular access controls and regular security audits. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for efficient data access with the imperative to protect sensitive information. The professional must evaluate different data management strategies, considering not only performance, but also compliance with data privacy regulations relevant to Oracle Cloud environments. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that is both technically sound and legally defensible, especially when dealing with data that may be subject to specific jurisdictional requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes implementing robust encryption for data at rest and in transit. This aligns with best practices for data security and is a fundamental requirement under many data protection regulations. By encrypting data, even if unauthorized access occurs, the data remains unintelligible, thereby mitigating the risk of data breaches and non-compliance. This proactive security measure demonstrates a commitment to data confidentiality and integrity, which are core tenets of responsible data management in the cloud. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying solely on network-level security controls without encrypting the data itself. While network security is important, it does not protect data if the network perimeter is breached or if access is gained through compromised credentials. This approach fails to meet the defense-in-depth principle and leaves data vulnerable, potentially violating data privacy laws that mandate protection of sensitive information. Another incorrect approach is to disable encryption to improve query performance. This is a direct violation of data protection principles and likely contravenes specific regulatory requirements for sensitive data. Prioritizing performance over security and compliance is a critical ethical and professional failure, exposing the organization to significant legal and reputational risks. A third incorrect approach is to assume that Oracle Cloud's default security settings are sufficient without independent verification and configuration. While cloud providers offer robust security features, the responsibility for configuring and managing data security ultimately rests with the customer. Neglecting to actively manage and tailor security measures to specific data types and regulatory obligations can lead to compliance gaps and security vulnerabilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data management. This involves identifying sensitive data, understanding applicable regulations, and implementing layered security controls. When evaluating data management strategies, the decision-making process should prioritize data protection and compliance, with performance considerations being secondary. Regular audits, security assessments, and staying abreast of evolving regulatory landscapes are crucial for maintaining a secure and compliant cloud data environment. Question 18. To address the challenge of managing sensitive customer data within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, while adhering to strict data residency regulations, which approach best balances compliance, performance, and security for a new application requiring low-latency access to this data? Option A. Utilize OCI's Global Content Delivery Network, CDN, to cache data across multiple regions, disregarding specific data residency requirements for the sake of widespread availability and speed. Option B. Conduct a detailed analysis of data sensitivity and applicable data residency laws, then choose an OCI region and appropriate OCI storage services that meet these specific requirements, prioritizing performance and security features aligned with the application's workload. Option C. Select an OCI region geographically closest to the majority of users, assuming this inherently satisfies data residency and performance needs. Option D. Deploy the application and data in the cheapest available OCI region to minimize operational costs, relying on OCI's general security measures to protect the data. Correct answer is C. Select an OCI region geographically closest to the majority of users, assuming this inherently satisfies data residency and performance needs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for efficient data access and processing with the imperative to protect sensitive information. The professional must navigate the complexities of data residency, compliance with Oracle Cloud Service Level Agreements, SLAs, and the potential impact of data location on performance and security. The challenge lies in selecting a data storage strategy that meets both technical and regulatory requirements without compromising data integrity or availability. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the data's sensitivity, regulatory requirements, and the capabilities of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI services. Specifically, it requires identifying OCI regions that comply with data residency mandates, and then selecting OCI storage services, e.g., object storage, autonomous database, that offer the necessary performance, security, and availability features for the specific data workload. This approach aligns with best practices for cloud data management, emphasizing a risk-based strategy that prioritizes compliance and security while optimizing for operational efficiency. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data stewardship and adherence to the principles of data governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Choosing an OCI region solely based on proximity to users without verifying data residency compliance is a significant regulatory failure. This could lead to violations of data protection laws, resulting in substantial fines and reputational damage. Similarly, prioritizing cost savings over security and compliance by selecting a less secure or non-compliant storage service exposes sensitive data to undue risk and breaches regulatory obligations. Opting for a generic, one-size-fits-all storage solution without considering the specific data characteristics and workload requirements can lead to performance bottlenecks, increased operational costs, and potential security vulnerabilities, all of which undermine effective data management and compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with a comprehensive assessment of data classification and regulatory obligation. This involves understanding the types of data being managed, their sensitivity levels, and the applicable legal and contractual requirements, e.g., Data residency, privacy laws. Next, they should evaluate the available OCI services and their features, considering performance, security, cost, and compliance certifications. A comparative analysis of different OCI regions and storage options, aligned with the data's requirements, is crucial. Finally, the decision should be documented, with clear justification based on the assessment of risks, benefits, and compliance considerations, ensuring transparency and accountability. Question 19. System analysis indicates that a multinational organization is migrating its customer relationship management (CRM) system to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI). This CRM system contains sensitive personal data of customers located in both the European Union and Australia. The organization's primary goal is to optimize performance and reduce operational costs. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data residency and sovereignty regulations while migrating the CRM data to OCI? Option A. Store all customer data in a single, central OCI region that is geographically closest to the organization's headquarters, as this simplifies management and reduces interregion data transfer costs. Option B. Assume that OCI's global infrastructure inherently complies with all international data residency laws, and therefore, any region can be used for storing this sensitive customer data. Option C. Select an OCI region that offers the lowest cost and best network latency to the majority of the organization's users, regardless of the geographical location of the customers whose data is being migrated. Option D. Implement a data governance strategy that classifies customer data based on its origin and sensitivity, and then select OCI regions that align with the specific data residency and sovereignty requirements of the European Union and Australia for each data classification. The correct answer is C. Select an OCI region that offers the lowest cost and best network latency to the majority of the organization's users, regardless of the geographical location of the customers whose data is being migrated. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for efficient data access and performance with the imperative to comply with data residency and sovereignty regulations. The organization is operating in a global environment, and different regions have distinct legal requirements regarding where data can be stored and processed. A misstep in selecting the cloud region for storing sensitive customer data can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The challenge lies in understanding the nuances of these regulations and applying them to cloud service configurations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the data's classification and the specific regulatory requirements of the jurisdictions where the customer data originates and is accessed. This means identifying which data is subject to strict residency laws, e.g., GDPR in Europe, or similar regulations in other specific jurisdictions that Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, operates within and supports. By mapping these requirements to OCI's available regions and understanding the data processing locations, the organization can ensure that sensitive data is stored and processed only in compliant regions. This proactive, compliance-driven selection of cloud regions is best professional practice because it directly addresses legal obligations, mitigates risk, and demonstrates a commitment to data privacy and security, aligning with the principles of responsible data stewardship expected within the Oracle Cloud ecosystem. Incorrect approaches analysis. Choosing a cloud region solely based on proximity to the majority of users, or for cost optimization without considering data residency laws, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the legal mandates of specific jurisdictions, potentially leading to violations of data sovereignty laws. Such violations can result in severe fines, legal action, and mandatory data breach notifications, all of which are professionally unacceptable. Another incorrect approach is to assume that all data can be treated the same, regardless of its sensitivity or origin. This oversight fails to recognize that different data types may have varying regulatory requirements, and a blanket decision can inadvertently place regulated data in non-compliant locations. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to implement a risk-based data governance strategy, which is a core tenet of professional cloud data management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a data-centric approach to cloud region selection. This involves a multi-step decision-making process. 1. Data classification. Categorize data based on sensitivity, type, and regulatory implications. 2. Regulatory mapping. Identify all applicable data residency and sovereignty laws for each data category and the relevant jurisdictions. 3. Cloud service provider capabilities. Understand the specific regions offered by the cloud provider, in this case, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and their compliance certifications and data handling policies for those regions. 4. Risk assessment. Evaluate the potential legal, financial, and reputational risks associated with storing data in different regions. 5. Policy enforcement. Implement and enforce internal policies that dictate region selection based on data classification and regulatory requirements. 6. Continuous monitoring. Regularly review and update region configurations as regulations evolve or business needs change. This structured approach ensures that compliance is a primary driver, not an afterthought, in cloud architecture design and data management practices. Question 20. Benchmark analysis indicates that a company is migrating a critical customer database to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. The primary objective is to improve application performance and scalability. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for ensuring data integrity and security during this migration? Option A. Focus exclusively on optimizing the performance of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure environment for the migrated data, assuming that the source data is inherently accurate and secure, and that post-migration security measures are sufficient. Option B. Immediately enable broad access to all migrated data to facilitate immediate application testing and user adoption, deferring detailed security configurations and data validation checks to a later phase. Option C. Prioritize the migration of data with minimal validation, focusing on achieving the highest possible transfer speeds, and address data integrity and security concerns only after the entire dataset has been loaded into the cloud. Option D. Implement a phased migration strategy that includes rigorous data validation and cleansing before full data loading, followed by the implementation of granular access controls and continuous security monitoring of the data in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. The correct answer is B. Immediately enable broad access to all migrated data to facilitate immediate application testing and user adoption, deferring detailed security configurations and data validation checks to a later phase. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud data management, balancing the need for rapid data access and performance with the imperative to maintain data integrity and security. The professional challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate data management strategy without compromising compliance with Oracle's best practices and the underlying principles of data governance, which are implicitly expected in a foundational associate exam. The pressure to deliver a performance solution quickly can lead to shortcuts that have long-term implications for data quality, security, and cost. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased implementation that prioritizes data validation and integrity checks before enabling full data accessibility. This aligns with Oracle's recommended best practices for data migration and integration, which advocate for a structured process. By first ensuring data accuracy and consistency through validation, the organization mitigates the risk of propagating errors into the new cloud environment. Subsequently, implementing access controls and monitoring mechanisms addresses security and compliance requirements. This methodical approach minimizes the likelihood of data breaches, unauthorized access, and data corruption, all of which are critical considerations in cloud data management and implicitly governed by data protection principles. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately enabling broad access to all data upon migration. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses essential data validation and security protocols. Without proper validation, corrupted or inaccurate data could be used for decision-making, leading to business errors and potential reputational damage. Furthermore, unrestricted access increases the attack surface for data breaches and unauthorized disclosure, violating principles of data confidentiality and integrity. Another incorrect approach is to defer all security and access control configurations until after the initial data loading is complete. This represents a critical security and compliance lapse, Data should be protected from the moment it enters the cloud environment. Delaying these measures leaves the data vulnerable to unauthorized access or modification during the migration process itself, which is a direct contravention of data security best practices and any applicable data protection regulations that mandate timely security implementation. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on performance optimization without considering data integrity or security. While performance is a key objective, it cannot come at the expense of fundamental data management principles. This approach risks introducing data quality issues or security vulnerabilities in the pursuit of speed, which can lead to compliance violations and operational risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud data management. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact, and implementing controls to mitigate them. A structured, phased implementation that includes data validation, security hardening, and access control as integral parts of the process, rather than afterthoughts, is crucial. Continuous monitoring and regular audits are also essential to ensure ongoing compliance and data integrity. When faced with competing priorities, professionals must always prioritize security and data integrity, as these are foundational to trust and compliance in any data management initiative.